Insurance, the health insurance specialist. Co-presented by JK Tyre Ranger Series. Stay wild at heart.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, your primetime destination news. Newsmakers talking points tonight. It's Delhi police versus the Congress in the heart of Delhi. Point of no return in that face-off as Rahul Gandhi continues to be quizzed by the Enforcement Directorate. Sachin will be joining me, the Congress leader. Also on the show tonight, Kaun Banega Rashtrapati? Does the opposition really have a plan and a name? Sitaram Yechury will join us of the CPIM. And we'll have an exclusive on Agnipath with the former Chief of Staff, General VP Malik. All that and much more. Lots of special guests to join me. But first, as always, the 9 headlines at 9. It's Congress versus the Delhi police in the heart of Delhi on the day 3 of Rahul Gandhi's questioning by the Enforcement Directorate. The Congress accuses the police of entering Congress headquarters, beating workers, a charge the police strongly denies. No consensus on a single candidate at a meeting called by West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee to decide on a common opposition candidate for president. Aam Aadmi Party TRS skipped the meeting. Sharad Pawar says he's not in the race. Left proposes Gopal Gandhi. Day after Agnipath scheme announcement by Centre, Home Minister Amit Shah says Agniveers will be given preference in recruitment to Central Police Forces also. Kerala gold scam fallout simmers. BJP takes to the streets against Chief Minister Vijayan. Water cannons used against protesters. Accused Swapna Suresh defiant says won't withdraw my statement. Maharashtra's Minister Anil Parab skips Enforcement Directorate summons in a probe linked to the 2017 land deal irregularities. Parab is accused of purchasing a parcel of land in Maharashtra for 1 crore. 5G spectrum auction approved by the Union Cabinet will deliver 10 times the data speed available today. Auctions to begin on 26th of July. Stock markets remain on the edge. Sensex and Nifty end volatile sessions with marginal losses. Auto shines, metal, IT drag the market down. Olympic champion Neeraj Chopra does it again, sets a new national record, personal best of 18.3 at the Pavo Nurmi Games 2022, his first competitive action since the Tokyo Olympics. And goodbye Internet Explorer. Microsoft retires its 27-year-old browser. Netizens get nostalgic. But the breaking news we are getting at the moment, Rahul Gandhi, the Congress leader, has now been summoned for a 4th time by the Enforcement Directorate. Remember, today he was being questioned. Now he's been summoned again on Friday. So this is the 4th time Rahul Gandhi, who's already had 3 long sessions with the Enforcement Directorate, will now have to return again. Rahul, remember, has been grilled on, or at least been questioned since 11 a.m. Questioned for over 9 hours today. So he will continue to be questioned for a 4th day is what we are being told. That questioning will take place now on Friday. So clearly the ED continues in a way to keep the heat on Rahul Gandhi. Now the Enforcement Directorate's questioning of Rahul Gandhi, which is continuing, is taking place amidst growing political turmoil because Congress leaders and workers are hitting the street in protest. Today they faced a police crackdown. The party has accused the Delhi police of entering its Congress headquarters, manhandling its workers. The BJP, on the other hand, says the Congress is provoking violence in a bid to save the Gandhis in the National Herald case. It was a dramatic day once again on the streets of Delhi. It's our top story tonight.
The face-off between the Congress and BJP plays out on the streets of New Delhi. For a 3rd straight day, Congress workers held protest against ED's questioning of Rahul Gandhi in the National Herald case. The police on Wednesday stopped party workers and leaders from entering the Congress headquarters on 24 Akbar Road. Rajya Sabha MP Dipinder Hooda claimed he was blockaded at his home itself. Stopped from taking out a march, Chhattisgarh CM Bhupesh Baghel sat on a dharna on the road. Sachin Pilot was among those prevented from entering Congress office and detained. As tensions rose, the police were seen entering the Congress office compound where they allegedly manhandled party workers and journalists. While the BJP accused the Congress of orchestrating violence to hide alleged corruption by the Gandhis, the grand old party lashed out at the Delhi police.
जिस प्रकार की हरकतें विगत 3 दिनों से दिखाई पड़ रही हैं और हिंसा की आड़ लेकर भ्रष्टाचार को छुपाने का प्रयास हो रहा है, तो कितनी लघुता, कितना छोटापन नेतृत्व का दिखाई पड़ रहा है। यह साफ दिख जाता है कि गांधी के दौर से सोनिया गांधी जी और राहुल गांधी जी के दौर तक आते आते कांग्रेस कितनी छोटी और कितनी बौनी होती चली जा रही है।
The Delhi police today forcibly entered the national headquarters of Indian National Congress at Delhi, beat up workers and leaders. This is patently criminal trespass.
In Maharashtra, a Congress leader found himself on the wrong foot after making offensive remarks on Prime Minister Modi.
नरेंद्र मोदी तुमको लोगों ने देश को विकास करने के लिए दिया है। 70 साल में कांग्रेस ने किया है, उसी को बेच कर तुम देश चला रहे हो। तुम कुछ कर नहीं रहे, ये फालतू के काम करना बंद करो, नहीं तो नरेंद्र मोदी तेरा वही हाल होगा। फिर अब क्या बोलेंगे कि जैसे की मौत होती है, ऐसे नरेंद्र मोदी की मौत होगी।
The Congress is now taking its protest national. The party has called for a gherav of Raj Bhavans across the country on Thursday. It will hold protest in every district on Friday. Meanwhile, the ED questioning of Rahul Gandhi continued for a third day. Sources tell India Today, Rahul Gandhi claimed he has not taken a single penny from the Young Indian, the non-profit firm promoted by the Gandhis that took over Associated Journals. Sources say the ED asked him to list the charity work done by the Young Indian. 3 days of questioning, 3 days of protest that are escalating day by day. The Congress versus BJP face-off is worsening. With Sonia Gandhi next on the ED list, the question remains, what is the agency's action against the Gandhis leading to? Bureau Report, India Today.
And let's go to two people who are at the heart of what was happening in the national capital. Sachin Pilot, former Deputy Chief Minister Rajasthan, senior Congress leader, joining me. Also, B.V. Srinivas has just come out, I think, of detention. Youth Congress Chief is joining me. But to you, Sachin Pilot, first, explain what has happened today. The government is saying the Congress is unnecessarily escalating this issue by hitting the street day after day. Allow the law to take its own course. You are itching for a fight. And that is not the way a democracy works. How do you respond to them when they say this is not the way a political party should respond when its leader is being questioned by the ED?
I think the whole world knows, Rajdeep, that the agencies of Government of India, whether it's ED or CBI or income tax, for the last 7 years have acted according to the political masters. Not a single BJP leader has ever been questioned or raided. The fact that there is blatant misuse and influence of the ruling party on these agencies is a matter of concern. The fact that Congress party was taking out a peaceful march just to show our concern about how the agency is being misused. The police entered the Congress party's headquarters with lathi charge. Our senior leaders were beaten black and blue. Our women MPs were thrown on the street. I mean, this kind of brute force being used is for the first time being witnessed in the national capital. I think nobody in the Congress party is looking for violence. In fact, I know anybody who uses...
No, I'm playing shots of tires. No, Mr. Pilot, I'm playing some shots of tires burning outside the ED office. Now, that is unacceptable. I mean, you've got to condemn that. Is that what you want to show?
But you should also condemn the fact that the police action beating people up in our own party office. If I am saying I want to follow the law, break no rules, so that must apply to the Delhi police also. How can you have the police enter an office and beat up people, detain them, put them under house arrest, put them in buses and detain thousands of people across the city? The point is that if you are using the police as a political tool, sure, then say it. All we are saying is that the blatant misuse of the agencies has now come to the fore. We want to expose that. As a political party, I'm within my right to do that. But the government of India and the Delhi police must act in a way that is becoming of an elected government. What's happened in the last 2 or 3 days is that they have shown no regard for sentiment for the opposition. Anyone who opposes the BJP, their voice will be muzzled. They will be attacked. They'll be brutalized. They'll be raided. They'll be, there'll be character assassination. And also, who is telling you these questions that ED is asking Mr. Rahul Gandhi? How do we know what is being asked, what is being said? This selective leakage of information also is a very planted ploy to make sure that the focus is not on the killings of the Kashmiri Pandits in the valley or of education, unemployment, price rise, the country's in distress in many sectors. But to avoid a discussion on those issues, they're using this to always keep the country on a boil, to have a policy of acrimony. I think anyone who uses foul language, anyone who uses violence as a mean, I will never support that. But the same rule must apply to Government of India and to the Delhi police. Look at what they did today. Women MP, the closed book tone.
They are saying section 144.
Harish Rawat. This is not acceptable in a democracy.
Okay, I want you to pause for a moment because, BV Srinivas, who on video has been caught being kicked by a Delhi police officer, is joining us. That video has now gone viral. That's why he's joining us. BV Srinivas, were you, as is being suggested by the police, provoking people? You were provoking people. There was section 144 there. Despite that, you and Youth Congress, आप लोग सब रास्ते पर आ गए. What is the police supposed to do? They are saying.
देखिए पुलिस किस तरीके के एसीसी ऑफिस तक घुसते हैं अंदर, तो कार्यकर्ता चुप के देख के बैठ सकते हैं क्या कोई? मैं कांग्रेस कार्यकर्ता हूं, मेरे साथ आप ये लोग पुलिस कुछ भी करें, मेरे को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. बट जो किस तरीके की जो मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है, जो पॉलिसी मेकर है, वो भी स्पेशली महिला लोकसभा ज्योति मनी से लेके तमाम मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट के साथ किस तरीके के इन लोग ने व्यवहार किया. और एआईसीसी सेक्रेटरी, जनरल सेक्रेटरी, कोई कौन सा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में नहीं है? एआईसीसी ऑफिस में हम लोग नहीं जा सकते, एआईसीसी ऑफिस बेरर नहीं जा सकते, चारों जगह इस तरीके के.
उनका कहना है सेक्शन 144 है, सेक्शन 144 है, आप सेक्शन 144 का उल्लंघन नहीं कर सकते थे.
और रात में बीच में रात में 3 बजे आके लगा देगा, स्टिकर लगा देगा 144 सेशन करके. ये थोड़ी है इनका काम. हाँ, किस तरीके के जो एक्स सेंट्रल मिनिस्टर से और मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है, सीएम से लेके तमाम लोगों के साथ किस तरीके के व्यवहार किया है.
आप लोग ने टायर जलाए कि नहीं जलाए?
ऑफिस के कार्यकर्ता लोग ने जलाया होगा, बट ऑफिस के अंदर वो लोग ने किस तरीके के व्यवहार किया, एक पत्रकार तक नहीं छोड़ा, उसको धक्का लेके वैन पे बिठा के पुलिस ने ले जाता है. कौन कार्यकर्ता चुप के बैठे रहते हैं बताइए? उनके ऑफिस में कोई जाके करेगा तो वो लोग बैठे रहते हैं ऐसे.
ठीक है Sachin Pilot, there are two ways to look at the optics. One is to suggest that here is the Congress party standing by its leader. The other is that just as you accuse the government of creating in a way a diversion, the Congress is also making a public spectacle of an issue which should be treated within the realms of the law. Allow the law to take its own course. This is the second time I'm asking you that. Allow the law to take its own course without allowing it to become a public spectacle in this manner.
So Rajdeep, we in the Congress or Mrs. Gandhi or Rahul Gandhi have nothing to hide. You can ask any questions, you can do whatever investigations you want, but the motive behind this pressure tactics, the whole country is witness to the fact that anybody who opposes the BJP will face the wrath of the government of the day. It's simple as that. I want to know why there's undue influence on these agencies, why are they not functioning in a transparent manner? And after 7 years, you're picking up a case and trying to summon people. Now Mr. Gandhi has been called again day after. So this is basically, it's a political, one-upsmanship where you're trying to say that if you're in opposition, if you raise a voice within parliament or outside, we'll come for you, we'll come after you. It's simple as that. There's no FIR, there is no complaint, there is no misappropriation of any funds that we can see. But the selective leakages from the questioning that's happening at the ED office is also very suspect. So we don't know. Legally, we are open to any investigations you want to do as a government of India. But the motive, the way it's being done, and the politicization of the agencies, that's something that's not healthy for our future and for our democracy.
I'm going to ask you, are you going to continue, therefore, to agitate in this manner? This agitation will not stop, is what you're saying. Are you telling me that every day that Rahul Gandhi is questioned, we are going to see this spectacle taking place outside?
Okay. Let me explain to you. First day, we did not put up a stage, no mics, no bhashan. We wanted a Satyagrah, a non-violent, peaceful Gandhian march. That much right a Congress party has to protest or not. That was denied. Then the police action took place. Permissions were denied. People were house arrested. So how does one protest a democracy? You tell me, Mr. Rajdeep, if I want to protest against the government policy, I can't gather in a place, I can't make a speech, I can't do a padyatra, I can't do a bhukartal. How do you protest about what you feel is wrong in this country? So if you take away those rights, then, it shows that the iron hand of the government will come down upon you. And if you happen to oppose the government, then so be it. Then you will face the wrath of the government. In a democracy, you have to respect the opposition and its views, have the patience and heart to listen to what we have to say. You may not agree, but the country needs to know what we stand for and what we believe in. But if you muzzle the voices of the people in the Congress party, that's not a healthy sign for a democracy at all.
बीवी श्रीनिवास, आपको सबसे ज्यादा मैं देखता हूं, सबसे ज्यादा एजिटेशन आप ही रहते हैं उसमें. जहां एजिटेशन होता है वहां श्रीनिवास होता है. कितनी लगी है आज?
नहीं, जब पूरा कांग्रेस का सारे कार्यकर्ता, सारे लीडर, सब लोग सड़क पे है. मैं अकेला नहीं हूं. और तमाम जो कार्यकर्ता नॉन स्टॉप, ये जो भी कितने बार बुलाएगा, हम लोग का लड़ने का है इनके सरकार के खिलाफ. किस तरीके के जो जानबूझ के ये पॉलिटिकल वेंडेटा कर रहा है. मैं इनको एक ही बात पूछना चाहता हूं, 8 साल में कितने इनका बीजेपी का मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट है, मिनिस्टर से इतना करप्शन केसेस में इन लोग का पार्टी से पूरा बाहर आया, आप लोग ने दिखाया. इंक्लूडिंग माई स्टेट का मैं बात करता हूं, कर्नाटक में 40% सरकार चल रहा है. एक मिनिस्टर के घर में 2-2 मशीन, मनी मशीन, काउंटिंग मशीन दिखता है. उनका कोई नहीं है. अमित शाह का बेटा 50,000 लगा के 80 करोड़ कमाते हैं. उसको कोई ईडी नहीं है, आईटी नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है. ओनली कांग्रेस लीडर क्यों है? जब भी चुनाव आता है कांग्रेस लीडर के ऊपर आईटी रेड हो जाएगा, ईडी रेड हो जाएगा. ये डराने का जो पॉलिटिक्स करा रहे हैं ना, इससे कांग्रेस कभी डरते नहीं है.
I will ask one final question therefore to you, Mr. Pilot. How will you respond to those who will say that the Congress has been dispirited? You're using this to try and galvanize your cadres. You've suffered election defeat after defeat. Why don't you protest with the same vehemence when it comes to core issues that concern the public? Price rise. Take up those issues rather than taking up issues which concern the Congress party only. Will you take up a public campaign like this, maybe for a month in the future, on the real issues that affect people?
In fact, what we are trying to do is bring the focus back on the real issues. There is unemployment, there's price rise. Like I said, Kashmiri Pandits have been massacred in the valley. So these are the issues that government gives no answers to. Deflect the discussion on those particular issues. They'll do some raids, some CBI, some ED, and keep the things boiling on. And the point is that we in the Congress and the opposition have the right, and we will speak for people all the time. But the institutions that they are being misusing today are important for our republic to remain neutral and transparent. You can't allow them to become weapons for the government to use against the opposition. And whether it's young people, whether it's now recently they've announced this bharti in the army, etc. I mean, these are issues that young people are concerned, and Congress has always spoken about them, about all inflation. There's record farmers' distress today. That's all Mr. Gandhi, Mrs. Gandhi, all of us keep talking about. But they don't want to engage in that discussion. They want to do some raid, keep some temperatures boiling, some divisive politics, some slogan, some ex-BJP spokesperson will talk about the prophet, some will talk about some Hindu god. They are trying to change the narrative from the real issues, and we want to bring the discussion back on what's important to the people of India.
So you're saying the government is responsible for the weapons of mass distraction, as some would call it, even as the government says the Congress is making a spectacle of a legal case. Either way, we'll wait and see how this plays out. Please stay well. I believe one of you is still in a police station, or you've been, Mr. Pilot, for most of the day. And Srinivas,
no, I'm still here. I'm still here.
You're still at the police station. So you're speaking to us from the police station in Narela. आप भी police station में हैं क्या?
They've allowed me to use the phone at the police station. So they've been quite gracious.
हॉस्पिटल.
अच्छा, आप हॉस्पिटल में थे, क्या हुआ आपको?
ये थोड़ा चोट लगी थी, उसको दिखाने आया हूँ.
I want to show that picture once again to viewers. Can I just show that picture? Because I think you need to recognize politicians have to be ready for in mass protest that there will be the odd instance of violence. But can we just show that picture? That is Srinivas now with us. This is him being kicked at that particular moment. So clearly, in a way, there are question marks over the way the Delhi police has handled this entire episode. Let's leave it there. Sachin, Pilot, BV Srinivas, stay well, stay safe. Thanks very much for joining me here at the top of the news. Thank you. Let's turn from there to the other big story tonight, which is the president. Kaun banega Rashtrapati is becoming now the next big political tussle, you can say. There was today no consensus at a meeting of opposition leaders that was called by West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. While Ms. Banerjee proposed the name of Pawar, he simply passed the buck. Now, Gopal Gandhi, the former West Bengal governor, could well become a front runner for the opposition. Take a look at what happened at that meeting called by Mamata Banerjee, including the fact that a few opposition parties skipped it. Take a look.
The race to Raisina Hill intensifies. Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee is the first of the bloc, taking the initiative to stitch a united opposition front. The long-awaited meeting of opposition leaders called by the TMC leader on Wednesday agreed on fielding a single candidate. Mamata once again pitched NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar for the post, but he declined.
Though I personally, even all the members of the meeting, they unanimously suggested Sharad Pawar's name. If he is agreed, everybody will give him support. And if not, then the name should be come from the political parties.
Sources tell India Today that Mamata also floated former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Farooq Abdullah's name. The left parties, according to sources, have suggested Mahatma Gandhi's grandson and intellectual Gopal Krishna Gandhi. Another meet is expected in a week's time. The meeting was attended by Sharad Pawar, Samajwadi Chief Akhilesh Yadav, Congress leaders Rajdeep Sardesai, Mallikarjun Kharge and PDP's Mehbooba Mufti among others. But in a big blow to Mamata, the TRS and the Aam Aadmi Party skipped the meet. According to sources, the TRS did not want to share a platform with the Congress.
All they were there. So only 1-2 party may be left out because they have some reason, maybe they are busy or sometimes. But all we have decided, there will be only one consensus candidate.
Mamata Banerjee's meet to unite the opposition has also exposed the fault lines within. 4 major regional parties, TRS, YSR Congress, BJD and Aam Aadmi Party stayed away. And without the support of at least 3 of these parties, the fight for president's post could become just a symbolic contest. Bureau Report, India Today.
Kaun banega Rashtrapati? That's the next big question blowing in the political wind in the national capital. Who will be India's next president? Does the opposition really have a strategy to take on the BJP-led NDA on the presidential election? Joining us now, the CPIM General Secretary, Sitaram Yechury. Mr. Yechury, it would seem that really the opposition has very little chance in this presidential election because you are so badly divided, as a result of which the numbers are with the BJP-led NDA.
You would be surprised that on this question of the Rashtrapati election, the unity amongst the opposition parties, you would be surprised, the country will be surprised at the manner in which we will all unite. Because the need of the hour today is to have a person who, as the custodian of the Indian Constitution, will uphold the Constitution, safeguard it.
No, those are all fine words. When you say you'll be surprised that the opposition is so united, Mamata Banerjee holds a meeting of the opposition parties on this issue to evolve a consensus. The TRS does not attend despite an invite. Aam Aadmi Party does not attend. The Biju Janata Dal does not attend. The YSRCP, Jagan Mohan Reddy's party, says they didn't even get an invite. Given these divisions that exist within the opposition flock, you clearly don't have a strategy, it would seem, and certainly not the numbers.
No, I mean, not attending the meeting does not mean not voting for the opposition candidate. There's a difference. And now the question is that who will be the candidate, and on that what will be the consensus, and I'm sure on that there will be, because right now the NDA does not have the requisite numbers. They require an ally outside of the NDA. And among the 3 parties that you mentioned, 3 who are holding state governments, that is Orissa, Telangana and Andhra. Any one of them going will tilt the balance in NDA's favor. Will they go?
Okay, so you're saying your attempt is to bring all of them together on the same page and find a common consensus candidate. We are told among the names that have been thrown up include Dr. Farooq Abdullah and Gopal Krishna Gandhi, the former West Bengal governor. We are told the left in particular has been keen on Gopal Gandhi. Do you see him as the kind of figure who can perhaps bring together all these opposition forces? He tried his hand at being vice president, lost. But do you see him as a potential presidential candidate?
No, he's one of those names probably being considered. The point is, remember, last time 18 parties supported him as the vice presidential candidate, 18 opposition parties. Now, in this time, we are just, the process has begun. The process has begun of consultations. We'll zero in on a name on which everybody will agree. And on that basis, I'm sure most of the opposition parties, because I think every single political party in the opposition is very, very seriously concerned about the upholding of our constitutional order and the character of the Indian Republic. These are under assault and they have to be protected. That is a serious concern for all the opposition parties.
Including these three parties, the Biju Janata Dal, the Telangana Rashtra Samiti and the YSRCP. I am told that neither does the TRS nor the YSRCP necessarily want to share a platform with the Congress. You've got the Biju Janata Dal, for whom also the Congress in a way is anathema in Odisha. So there are, you and Mamata Banerjee will come on the same platform, given your divisions in Bengal.
Again, what I told you, last time we voted together, TMC and the CPIM, for the Gopal Krishna Gandhi as the vice president.
Yes.
We did not come on the same platform. We can vote. That is the point. You please understand that. In this, in a democracy, what finally is that where will you vote? Now, these three parties that you mentioned who have state governments, Odisha, Telangana and Andhra, they are also subject to the entire attack that is taking place on the rights of the states and particularly on the question of fiscal federalism. Now with the GST compensation stopping, every one of these state is going to get very adversely affected. And there is no compensatory thing being done by the central government in order to offset that pressure that will be there on the states. They'll have to respond, the state governments.
You know, I threw up various names. I threw up Gopal Gandhi because I was told his name was raised both in the meeting called by Mamata Banerjee and when you met Mr. Sharad Pawar. And one opposition leader told me in the 75th year of independence, we want this battle to be Gandhi versus Godse. I don't know whether you were the one who said it apparently at the meeting. Someone did. Is that true?
Well, the question is the Gandhi versus Godse is already on the agenda in the country. It has already been posed, not by us, but it's been posed by the ruling party. Ruling party. And now, this is the 75th year of India's independence. Since they have posed this question, the challenge has to be taken up. India has to take up the challenge. If you want India and the Indian constitution and say, we the people who have adopted that constitution will uphold that constitution.
The other name that was thrown up was Dr. Farooq Abdullah. In the context of what has happened with Article 370, apparently some members see it as having symbolic value. Do you see him as someone who can be a potential
As I told you, all these names, various other names are also under consideration. The point is, on which name will there be a consensus?
Sharad Pawar you met Sharad Pawar, and Mamata Banerjee has been quite open about the fact that she had gone out, reached out to Mr. Pawar, said, why don't you become a candidate? You also apparently pushed his name. Is that true?
That it is, and in fact the Congress, Mr. Kharge went and met him in Bombay, in Mumbai, and then he also urged him to do it. But then Mr. Pawar says that he'd like to be in active politics for some more time. So therefore he's declined. Otherwise, I mean, he could have been a very, very good consensual candidate.
You know, you're throwing up all these names, you're expressing confidence that the opposition will stand together. We just saw in the Rajya Sabha elections also that took place, the BJP was able to make a dent even in opposition-ruled states like Maharashtra. The sense is Mr. Modi and the BJP will be able to make to give India the next presidential candidate. There is also a move from the likes of Rajnath Singh is that why doesn't the opposition and the government come together and evolve a consensus candidate? Why do you need a contest?
Why is he telling you that? Why doesn't he tell me that? Why doesn't Mr. Rajnath Singh reach out to the opposition parties and first talk about it? That is the practice.
He has reached out to a few opposition parties.
Who?
We are told he has spoken to Mamata Banerjee, and the process is likely to begin where he will speak to other opposition leaders and saying, look, we will throw up a name, let's evolve a consensus.
Likely to begin, we've been hearing all along. It is the ruling party always that takes the initiative in trying to build a consensus. That has been absent so far.
So you're not averse to the idea of there being no contest, a president chosen by consensus if the candidate is someone whom you think can uphold constitutional values? Because in the history of India, only one president has been elected unopposed. That was Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy in 1977. So you're not unwilling to consider a candidate that the BJP throws up. Am I correct?
No, not unwilling, because it depends on who is the candidate. It entirely crucially depends on who is the candidate. If the BJP, for instance, proposes Gopal Krishna Gandhi, we'll definitely support it.
No, Mr. Yechury, you are choosing the candidate and saying Mr. Modi and the BJP must support the person you want.
I'm saying supposing they propose somebody like that.
Suppose they propose a woman and an Adivasi. There's a lot of buzz at the moment that the candidate could be a woman and an Adivasi. India has never had a tribal president. If they propose it, will you support it?
No, that has been going around for some time. And we also know who that lady in the question is. And also
there's been talk of Draupadi Murmu.
Yeah. So that has been going around for some time. But this is all happening through you meaning the media.
So Sitaram Yechury giving us a news point suggesting that Gopal Krishna Gandhi could well be a potential candidate for the opposition in the race for Rashtrapati Bhavan. But will the entire opposition stick together? 51% if the opposition sticks together, 49% for the BJP, but parties like Jagan Mohan Reddy are likely to support the NDA and therefore its advantage NDA in the presidential race. Let's turn from there to our other special focus, because a day after the government of India announced its new recruitment scheme for the armed forces called Agnipath, it was announced, remember, by the Modi government and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh yesterday. The centre now says the scheme is aimed at providing a youthful image to the armed forces. The eligibility of the scheme, remember, is the age of 17.5 to 21 years. Candidates will be enrolled under respective service acts for the recruitment. Rigorous military training in existing training centres will be needed. The duration of the service, they say, is 4 years, including training. Only 25% of the recruits will continue with the service after their 4-year term ends. The remaining 75% will leave with Seva Nidhi adding up to 11 to 12 lakhs without pension once they retire from the service. But it has sparked off a fierce debate. Okay, joining us now as that debate is sparked off by the government's latest reform for the army is my next special guest. I'm joined by former army chief who led the Indian army during the Kargil war, General VP Malik joins me. Appreciate your joining us, General Malik. Where do you stand now on this debate, General Malik, that has been ignited by the Modi government's Agnipath scheme to reform recruitment in the army? 17 to 21 years, 4-year, in a way, duty. Some say it will lead to a younger and fitter army. Others are saying it could lead to a much less professional army. With just 4-year terms, it will in a way disrupt the way armed forces function. Where do you stand on this increasingly polarized debate?
Good evening, Rajdeep. Thank you for asking me. I believe it's a step in the right direction. It's a pragmatic scheme, and it takes into account the socio-economic conditions of the country. Mm-hmm. It takes into account technological conditions that we will be facing in future, particularly in the nature of conflict and the kind of weapons and equipment that we will have to use. It also takes into account even the terrain on which we may be fighting. I'm referring to high altitude and the mountainous terrain, etc. So I believe it's a pragmatic scheme, and it's worth going in for it. In case there is any flaws or any noticeable weaknesses in that, they can be corrected. But on the face of it, it looks to be a pragmatic scheme.
You're calling it a practical and pragmatic scheme, General Malik. Let me now give you the views of those criticizing it. Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, for example, says anyone under the delusion that an intern on a 4-year tour of duty will match up to the Himalayan challenges and place the izzat of the Paltan before life and limb is clearly hallucinating. How do you respond to that? That this scheme of Agnipath, far from creating in a way these Agni warriors, it will actually affect the army's izzat. The camaraderie will be shaken if you have 4-year interns, as he calls them, suddenly joining the army tomorrow.
Very strong words. But Rajdeep, I have seen troops into the battle, fighting the battle. As you know, during Kargil war, we had a large number of troops who had come from the training centers, joined their battalions. We also had young officers who had just put in 2 or 3 years service. Some of them had been commissioned in the ASC, Ordnance, EME, etc. And they were on attachment with the infantry battalions which were there. They all fought well. They all fought for the regiment or the battalion for which they were. They all fought, in fact, many of them did commendable jobs. I can even mention the decoration some of them got. So I believe that it's we need not fear the kind of we need not fear about it, and these boys will be absorbed. The way the number will come into the youth, they will be absorbed properly, and there is no need for us to worry that they will not abide by the Naam, Namak and Nishan.
The second criticism, General Malik, and many will say this is a much more serious one being made by a few army veterans, is that apart from eroding the ethos of the regimental system, the scheme will also lead to frustration among those who are rejected by the army and not retained in service after 4 years. This is again Lieutenant General Bhatia, and also allied to that is the fears that once they enter society heavily militarized, what will they do? What happens to those who are rejected in a way by the army, not retained after 4 years? Is that the frustration and the militarization, will they be able to really take the next step in their life, and what will that do to society to have this militarized society?
Again, I don't think people are taking into account the socio-economic conditions of the country. And as long as we have a youthful profile, as long as we have the educated people, we should not worry too much. They would have served in the army for 4 years, and they would go back with a small package, as well as a certain amount of training, the discipline and the ethos of the army. I'm sure they will be able to find jobs outside. This is a welfare aspect that people are referring to. And even today I heard that some of them can be absorbed in the paramilitary forces or Central Armed Police. This is what has been announced by the Ministry of Home Affairs.
You know, the criticism, General Malik, again is coming from the fact that there are those who are not fully convinced whether the intentions of the government is to reform the army, give us a fitter, physically fitter army, one which is its claim will be more technologically savvy, or simply now to save on money because of the bloated pension bill. Because the pension budget was ballooning, therefore this step has been taken to reduce the age of the army. Do you go along with that, that really is the motive? Reform is only the way it's being window dressed?
Rajdeep, one of the consideration is indeed to save on the defense budget. One cannot deny that. And it will reduce the pension budget that we are spending at the moment, and which will keep on increasing. Overall, I believe that this will reduce the revenue budget that we are spending, almost about 80 to 85%, and it will help increase the capital budget, which is required for modernization. And therefore, there is nothing to be afraid of, in fact, about this.
Let's turn from the criticism to the support. I know you seem to be also now emerging at the support, as a supporter. Many say the Indian army, this massive Indian army, needs major reform, particularly the need to adapt to new technologies in the 21st century. Do you believe the focus therefore should be on the technology aspect? Do you believe therefore it should be restricted to this recruitment with the Agnipath scheme? But what really is needed is an adaptation to new technologies. Unless that happens, all of these reforms will not work. Do you go along with that? Or do we need the physical presence at the end of the day, boots on the ground? Technology or boots on the ground?
Absolutely. I do believe that. In fact, I think we are getting late into that. It's good to depend so much on our regimental system, which I agree with and which we must maintain. But also we have to improve the quality of men which are coming into the armed forces. And that is an important factor. I have always believed in quality over quantity. Let me be I've been saying that from the time I was Army Chief, that I would prefer quality over quantity.
General Malik, you at the very outset said that perhaps this Agnipath scheme needs to go through some kind of trial and error. It needs to be flexible. If there are any mistakes, distortions, they can be corrected. Do you believe, therefore, that maybe it should have been launched by the Government of India as a pilot project before announcing it dramatically, test its effectiveness before implementing it so suddenly?
I do feel whatever scheme that we adopt, Rajdeep, we must remain flexible. If there are any weaknesses noticed in that, we should be able to correct that. Mm-hmm. So I believe that even this scheme, as we go along with it, if there are any major weaknesses found, we should correct that. Mm-hmm. For example, if in my own first view was that it should have been for 5 years and not 4 years or 6 years. Now, that is something which can be seen after a few years, whether 4 years are good enough or we should extend it to 5 years. Similarly, I believe that the number which are coming, how many numbers should be coming at one time but I noticed that the number is okay. Today, they are talking about 45 or 48,000 to be inducted. And every year we have about 50,000 troops who retire from the army. So the number is such that it's going to take some time for these boys to be inducted in the unit in very small numbers, and they will be absorbed properly.
Right.
One more factor, Rajdeep, if I can mention.
Yes, go ahead.
And that factor is at the moment we have agreed on 25%. We may increase it to say 35 or 40% if required. That is another aspect on which I believe we should remain flexible.
My final question, sir. Net, what I gather from you is that you're not concerned that the military ethos, the professionalism of our 40 lakh strong armed forces will be affected by people coming in for these short duration tour of duties at the age of 17. You believe this is a step in the right direction. Am I correct? Broadly, you believe that we are moving in the right direction towards reforming the army. It's not just window dressing.
Yes, Rajdeep, I also want to remind you and the other people that when I had joined the army, and for quite some time, we used to have people only for 7 years regular term. After that, they were sent on reservist list, etc. So from those 7 years, now we have made it 4 years. With all the technology available to us for training these, we have such a large number of simulators today. And that is one reason why the training period has also been reduced from 1 year to 6 months. So things have changed a lot. Mm-hmm. And one has seen the way we have expanded our number, we have accepted the technology. So I think it would be possible, and I'm not apprehensive. I believe we would be able to go ahead with the scheme.
General Malik, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for giving us your perspective on Agnipath, the reform agenda when it comes to the army, or at least that's how it's being positioned by the Modi government. We'll have to wait and see what its sociological and military implications on the ground are. Let's take a break. When we return, among other things, we'll bring you our good news today's story. It comes from Madhya Pradesh. We'll tell you more on the other side.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171.
Welcome back. Let's turn to tonight's Get Real India story. Today's story comes from Maharashtra, where Marathi actor Ketki Chitle, who was arrested over a social media post on Sharad Pawar a month ago, still remains in jail. The government of Maharashtra says that she's been arrested under the Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribes Act for statements she had earlier made about Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Either way, she has spent a month in jail for her Facebook posts. The Bombay High Court on Tuesday had come down heavily on the Maharashtra government in a separate case involving a student who had been similarly arrested and asked, why are people being jailed over social media posts? That's a question I want to ask. Will the Maharashtra government, which often prides itself on freedom of speech and speaks about the great legacy of Tilak, Gokhale, Agarkar, heed the court's advice? The story of Ketki Chitle is Get Real India.
It's been a month since Marathi actress Ketki Chitle landed in jail for posting alleged derogatory content on social media against NCP chief Sharad Pawar. Chitle had posted a Marathi poem that had references to the NCP chief. Over 20 FIRs have been filed against Ketki. Her lawyers allege she was beaten up and harassed in police custody.
This is a misuse of power and misuse of government machinery by some powerful politicians in the Maharashtra. What is about her liberty or fundamental rights? She was abused, she was beaten in the police custody. She have filed a complaint in the Kalamboli police station, but no single FIR registered.
Ketki's lawyer also claims that charges against her are bailable.
Some power is there in that poem she forwarded. Some power is there. So every NCP leader is going and lodging FIR against her, and police also registering that FIR. This is a clear misuse of power.
The BJP has come out in support of Ketki.
कोई भी विरुद्ध में बोलेगा तो जेल में भेजा जाएगा. ये उद्धव ठाकरे शरद पवार का पुत्र है. अब केतकी चितले हो या दूसरा वो नौजवान है, उसको महीना महीना जेल में रखना, ये सिर्फ ड्रग माफिया के ऊपर वाले माफिया की ठाकरे पवार सरकार ही कर सकती है.
Higher courts are taking cognizance of the fact that multiple FIRs are being registered against one social media post against a politician. In the case of Ketki Chitle, she continues to be behind bars for more than a month. Her lawyers say that there is nothing much to investigate in the case.
The day Ketki was arrested, Nikhil Bhamre, a student from Nashik, was also picked up by the police for posting alleged objectionable tweets against Pawar. Bombay High Court on Monday urged the Maharashtra government to release Bhamre voluntarily. The court asked if the state government is aware that multiple FIRs are being registered in one offence. The court said, if you start taking actions like this, you end up damaging the name of the person who has received the second highest civilian, a Padma Vibhushan. Even the towering personality will not like a student being kept in jail.
जब भी मैंने अगेंस्ट ट्रोलिंग के अगेंस्ट या गंदे मैसेज के अगेंस्ट कार्रवाई करने के लिए कहा, तो मुझे नहीं लगता इतनी कार्रवाई कभी हुई है। छोटी है और अलग अलग राज्यों में एक ही केस के लिए इतने सारे ऑफेंस लगाना, मुझे नहीं लगता है कि पवार साहब ने इसमें इंटरेस्ट लिया होगा, बिकॉज पवार साहब का मन बहुत बड़ा है। जो उनके आजू बाजू के लोग हैं उन्होंने ये सब किया है।
The arrests of Ketaki and Bhamre are proof of rising intolerance of criticism among political leaders. Will the Uddhav Thackeray government now heed the High Court's advice and release the two? With Mustafa Sheikh in Mumbai, Bureau Report, India Today.
So that is free speech in Maharashtra. Let's turn to another opposition-ruled state, West Bengal, where in another crackdown on free speech, a teen has been arrested for a social media post against riots. All the 19-year-old Aishwani did was slam the rioters after her house was attacked. This is not limited to Bengal. Similar crackdowns have taken place, as I said, in Maharashtra too. The question is freedom of speech selective? Take a look at this report, this time from Bengal.
Is this not intolerance? Youngsters jailed for their social media posts. In Uddhav's Maharashtra, in Stalin's Tamil Nadu, in Mamata's Bengal. Remember, it was India Today that brought national attention to the case of young student Saad Ansari, who was beaten up, assaulted and then jailed for a post where he had backed Nupur Sharma. A similar tale of intolerance in Tamil Nadu, where this man has been arrested in Coimbatore. And why? Because he supported Nupur Sharma. 24-year-old Karthi, a former ABVP leader, shared Nupur's video and defended the now suspended BJP spokesperson, prompting his arrest. And now, this girl you see on your screens, all of 19, is behind bars. She didn't support Nupur Sharma. She didn't speak of any community. She actually just slammed the rioters. 19-year-old Aishwani faced protests. These rioters took the law into their own hands, pelted stones at a police station and attacked her house. And how did the police respond? No, they didn't book the rioters. They actually jailed Aishwani instead.
এটা খারাপ কি লিখেছে খারাপ কিছু যদি লিখতো যে যদি কোনো উল্লেখ করে কিছু যদি লিখতো যদি যে কোনো সাম্প্রদায়িক দল বা কোনো ভাই সাহেব মুসলমান হ্যাঁ এই হিসাবে যদি ও লিখতো তাহলে এটা আলাদা ব্যাপার ছিল.
So what did Aishwani say in her post? She simply demanded that these rioters who resorted to violence in her state should be sent out of India, prompting violence on the streets of Howrah.
Stones were pelted, pointing the locals' residents, and as you can see, that this is the road connecting National Highway to this locality. Several houses were damaged. We can see that the stone were pelted, pointing towards the glass windows.
যা অবস্থা হয়েছিল যে পরের দিন যে আমরা বাজবো, আত্মীয়স্বজন ফোন করছে, মানে আমাদের কি গিয়েছে আমরা জানি। এইটুকুন বলতে পারবো, আর কিছু কি বলবো দাদা। তারপরে তো পুলিশ যদি না আসতো ওই 10 মিনিটে যে আরো অনেক কিছু হতে পারত।
The BJP meanwhile has condemned this crackdown on a teenager and offered legal help as well to Aishwani's family.
A mob surrounded her house and the police arrested her rather. So in the same matter, the state said that sometimes it is safe to stay in the jail. So regarding the same, I have made my submissions and the Honorable Court has taken cognizance and they have asked the state to file a report regarding her arrest. So the matter will be taken up soon.
The very same political leaders who have time and again spoken of the BJP's intolerance and exposed the ruling party now stand guilty of maintaining a symbolic silence, of shining examples of intolerance in their own states, at least as much as those they accuse of displaying the same intolerance. But India Today will continue to highlight these stories of hypocrisy and fight for these youngsters who've been punished for voicing their views. With Ritik Mondal in Kolkata, Bureau Report, India Today.
Two stories, one from Maharashtra, one from Bengal. Let's turn though to our good news today story, and it comes from Madhya Pradesh, where a village has set an example in women's empowerment. Semli village has elected for itself an all-woman panchayat. Take a look.
It is as normal as a village as any. Situated in the landlocked district of Agarmalwa in Madhya Pradesh. But the USP of Samely village lies in its leadership. 16 punches, all women. A small bid by villagers to promote women leadership.
16 पंच है और सरपंच भी महिला चुनी जाए. महिला हमारा गांव में आदमियों तो बहुत पीछे है और महिला आगे बढ़नी चाहती है.
The post of Sarpanch in this village is also reserved for women. The elected representatives believe that this initiative would give women of the village, especially the new generation, opportunity to prove their mettle.
हमने एकता के लिए पूरी पंचमी हमारे महिलाओं के लिए थी और महिलाएं आगे बढ़े.
The village hopes that its punches will put it on the road to development. Bureau Report, India Today.
Our image of the day comes from Chhattisgarh, where more than 100 hours later and non-stop rescue efforts for 11-year-old Rahul Sahu have been brought alive after he has been brought out alive after he had fallen in a bore well. That's the good news, that the boy is safe, sound, and all credit to those who've done that remarkable rescue act. We leave you with our image of the day, the little boy being brought out of the bore well. Thanks for watching. You stay well, stay safe. Good night, Jai Hind, Shubh Ratri, Namaskar.
India Today TV wins big at NT Awards 2022. Bags 14 most coveted awards. TV news presenter male Rahul Kaval. Business news anchor female Abha Bakaya. Best news debate show News Track. Best talk show To the Point. Daily news bulletin News Today. TV news reporter Ashutosh Mishra. Sports special Go for Gold. Best use of graphics by a news channel, State of War 2021 elections, and many more. With 37 awards for the India Today group, the most credible network is also the most awarded. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
Co-powered by Buy, Sell, Rent on 99acres.com.